Hi, my name is Lexi. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to talk about how long your eating window should be on your eating day. Okay, so maybe you just started alternate day fasting and you've done some research, but you're a little bit confused about how long your eating window should be on your eating day. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with this, especially if they're coming from a time restricted eating window, like a daily window, like maybe 16-8 or 18-6 or OMAD, even a shorter window. Like if you're used to eating in a very short window, a lot of people can kind of struggle with this idea of having a full day of eating. Like it kind of overwhelms them and feels like it's too much. So I'm just gonna kind of talk about some guidelines and some sort of research that's out there and some general ideas. Now I'm just gonna say that this is what works for me. This is what I see works for most people, but that doesn't mean that it's exactly what you need or what's going to work for your body. So just take that as you will and definitely tailor this to your own needs as always. Now I'm going to start by reading a passage, which is Fast, Feast, Repeat by Jen Stevens. I have this linked below always because it is my favorite book on fasting. So I'm going to read a little passage from the chapter on alternate day fasting. In case you're curious, this is chapter 7 in the book, and it is all about alternate day fasting protocols. So I'm going to kind of jump around within this, but I'm starting on page 96, and it says, the last thing you want to do is over-restrict on your up days. In an early ADF study, scientists reported that the participants ate an average of 100 to 110% of their body's calculated energy needs, which is, basically what you would think of as a caloric calculation that someone would come up with as the amount of calories that you would need for your body type or your body weight, whatever. So on the up days, yep, in that study, many of them were overfeeding by eating above their body's maintenance levels, and none of them were dieting in any way on their up days. An up day should contain at least 2 to 3 meals in a minimum of 6 to 8 hour period. It's perfectly fine to follow a typical 3 meal a day eating pattern on your up days, as you should be absolutely not dieting in any way on up days. Even if you end up eating more food than your body needs, as long as you aren't stuffing yourself silly, the up days will be balanced out by the down days. You'll have the fat loss benefits of the down days coupled with the metabolic boosting benefits of the up days. So those two keys are super important. You have a full day of fasting wherein you are getting into ketosis, getting into fat burning. Then you have a full day of refeeding where you are boosting your metabolism. And so those two components are what make alternate day fasting work. And it's also what makes it sustainable because it's what makes it enjoyable. And here's the thing. I know a lot of people are really worried about having a full day of eating, but this is what I'm gonna say. Once you get adapted to alternate day fasting, there is this appetite correction that happens where your body is going to stop you from overeating. Like I cannot overeat anymore because I will get sick. Especially like after a full day of fasting, I can't overeat. If I do get to that point, I will literally have to expel it from my body. Like it just is too much. And I get very, very clear signals of when that point is. So like if I overdo it, it's only my own doing because I know when I have to stop. And so that is the magic of alternate day fasting with appetite correction. And that takes a while. It's different for everyone where that happens, but eventually your body should balance out those hunger and satiety hormones to where you're going to get clear signals from your body when you need to stop. And so you're not going to have to force yourself to stay within a certain amount of calories or macros or whatever it may be. I mean, if you want to count macros because you're trying to like stay within some kind of either high fat, low carb or low fat, high carb type paradigm. That's totally up to you. But as far as calories and whatnot, you really don't have to restrict. You really shouldn't restrict, because, and here's the thing with that, I feel like on my eating days, I never want to feel restricted. I never want to feel hungry. And so the way that I pattern my day is that I don't let myself on my eating day get to the point where I feel really hungry. I definitely will feel like the beginnings of hunger and stuff, but I don't want to feel to the point where like I'm forcing myself to wait, which is how I feel if I do a daily window when I'm trying to get to, say, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm sort of anticipating that time. I don't want to feel like that when I'm doing alternate day fasting and when I'm having a full eating day after a fast day. I just want it to feel completely free and natural and just go with the flow. So how many hours that is really going to vary. I think it's going to vary depending on how far along you are in your journey, maybe what time of the month you're in if you're a female, what you have going on in your life. It's just going to vary so much. So what I would say, if you're in the very beginning of alternate day fasting, or even if you have been doing it a while but you just kind of feel like you're not quite getting your groove with it, I would say don't pin yourself to any amount of hours as far as how many hours you should eat within in that day. Typically it's 6 to 12 hours is like the general guidelines for alternate day fasting. But I know that some people, when they first start, may even go to like 14 hours just because of that mental thing, like not wanting to have to plan out the day when you have an eating day. And I think that is perfectly fine, because eventually you're going to evolve into a different kind of pattern. And my pattern has definitely changed over time. In the beginning, I probably should have mentioned at the beginning, I've been alternate day fasting for over 2.5 years now. So it's been a really long time. And at the beginning, I would probably have about a 9-hour eating window on my weekday eat days, which were Tuesday and Thursday. And then I would have on Saturday a really long window, because I always wanted to have a bowl of ice cream with my husband at night after the kids went to bed. So I would wake up, and I would usually break my fast like at 7:30. So it was really soon after I'd wake up, maybe like an hour after I'd wake up. And then I would eat until like 8:30 or 9. And so it would end up being like a 14-hour window on those Saturdays. And then on Sunday, it would vary. But usually I'd still have like a 9-hour eating window on Sunday as well. So, yeah, because I do 4-3, I don't do true alternate day fasting. So, you know, I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday are my fasting days typically, but I do change that up according to what's going on in my life. And kind of in the middle of my journey, like in 2021, I did kind of change things up a bit, where I was actually in the weekdays more eating my bigger meal, like my dinner at lunchtime. And that worked out with my schedule because my husband was getting home late from work anyway, so he had to reheat his dinner no matter what. So I was just eating dinner with the kids at lunchtime because I homeschool, but I guess it was summer anyways, so they would have been home regardless. But it was just working out that way, and I really enjoyed that. And so during that time, I was just always ready to close my window a lot earlier, because I would have that bigger meal at lunchtime. So then it sort of like, my windows got shorter. My weekday windows were probably closer to 6 hours. And then on Saturdays, over time, I just stopped wanting to have that ice cream with my husband at night. It just was something that sort of dropped off my radar. It was never like a goal that I set, like, I want to cut this habit out. I realized that I felt better when I, ended my eating hours earlier, and I just felt like that wasn't usually adding anything to my life. And so now I would say maybe once a month or even less, I will do that, where I will eat later on a Saturday till like 9 o'clock, but typically I don't do it anymore. And that's just been a natural progression. And now our schedule is a little bit different, and my husband works from home. And so we do have dinner closer to dinner time now, still earlier than most people would, because again, I like to be done eating earlier. So I try to be done by like 5 o'clock, and I typically break my fast in the morning at about 9. So my weekday eating hours are about 8 hours. On Saturday, it's probably about 9 or 10 hours. And then Sunday totally varies, could be anywhere from 4 to 9 hours on a Sunday. So just kind of depends on what I'm feeling like and what I have going on. The big takeaway again is just that I feel like it's really important, especially in the beginning, not to set any high expectations as to like, I need to have a 42-hour fast just because you see other people doing a 42-hour fast. A 36-hour fast is totally fine, even if it's only 34 hours or whatever. As long as you're getting that full day of break from food. And I know some people do the modified fast, so you can totally decide if that's what works best for you. For me, I'd rather have a full day of 0 calories, and I do clean fast, so I don't add anything to my water. I don't drink coffee, so that's not even an issue, but nothing flavored, nothing sweetened, even stevia. I don't do any of that stuff. And I know a lot of people will argue that those things are fine. And again, I would point you to this book right here. There are literally, I don't know if there's hundreds, but at least dozens of testimonials in here of people who have switched to clean fasting. And the overall message that I get from those people is, yeah, sometimes it helps their weight loss, but like it's more of it that it makes their fasting easier. Because I think what happens when you add a lot of those things in to your fasting window is that it actually increases your appetite and makes it harder for you to fast. So just keep that in mind. I am not the fasting police, and I'm not going to come to your house and grab your stevia away from you. That's totally your call, but that information is out there, so read it if you want. So I'm just gonna touch on a fear that a lot of people have, which is binging, and I do not have a binging disorder, so I don't claim to be an expert on that, especially when in regards to fasting. What I will say is that what I've observed from people who do struggle with this is that binging seems to be very closely tied to restriction. And so I realized that when you're restricting for a whole day, people could think that that would trigger that urge to binge. What I can say personally is that there's something magical about the sleep after that full day fast, where when I wake up the next day after, I'm about 36 to 38, 40 hours fasted, I am totally just zen, like don't have any strong urges to eat anything, totally at peace, just feel really good. And so capitalize on that. And that is another reason why I would say on your eating day, it may be wiser to break your fast earlier than later, rather than trying to push your fast to like that 42-hour mark, because then you may rebuild up some of that urge to eat and just the mental cravings and everything. But also, it's really important not to restrict on your eating days. And in the beginning, I think what that's gonna look like is that you're going to be maybe eating some things that you have made off limits for yourself for a long time. And what I would say about that is, honestly, I would say do it and journal about it and see how those foods affect you. How do you feel when you eat them? And do you want to do that again, and make it that simple, because sometimes you're going to feel like trash after you eat certain things, and you're going to decide it's not worth it anymore because you tell yourself, I'm allowed to have this, I can have it, but I just don't want it anymore. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't feel good. The other thing is that I think is really important that will kind of prevent some of these maybe urges to binge are to ease into alternate day fasting. I don't believe that anyone should start with alternate day fasting if they've never fasted before. I think you really need to ease into it and maybe start with a 16-8 or even 12-12. You know, start wherever you are and just work your way up to that. If you can comfortably do a 24-hour fast, then I would say you are probably ready to do ADF, and you're just gonna have to get over that hump, but just don't jump right into it. But I think that the point is you're kind of gonna have to rebuild that trust with your body, and you're going to have to reassure it that you are not only feeding it enough, but that you are going to over time learn how to feed your body what it actually wants and needs. And that is a process. And there's going to be days that are just not very good. And so I would say you're going to learn from those and just be curious and be real with yourself, and, you know, ask yourself how you felt and if that's what you really want. Because those are some of the best learning experiences, are those bad days. And once the fog lifts and you get back into the next fast, you can really take that time to reevaluate and reflect on what happened the day before and why you think that happened, and what you can do to sort of support yourself and forge a better path. And just one quick word on people who are coming from OMAD. A lot of people I hear who come from OMAD really struggle to have a longer eating window. They just feel like they can't handle eating any more food. And for those people, I would suggest definitely leaving your window open long enough to be able to get those at least 2 meals in and to feel like you are satisfied and you have enough to go into that next full fast. And so the guidelines of 6 to 12 hours really are pretty solid, and but it's going to vary person to person. And as I said, along your journey, you're just going to evolve into different patterns, and that's great. And you're going to get to a point where you feel satisfied in your day and you know that you're just done. And at that point, that's where I use my fasting app and I press start and I'm like, okay, I'm done. There is nothing that any more food is going to do for me today. If I eat any more, it's just going to be like a mental thing and I'm not going to be happy that I did it. The other thing is I have fasted so many different ways that I know personally that I could stop eating at noon and not be hungry for the rest of the day. So that's the amazing thing about metabolic flexibility, is that you can just go longer without eating. But I know myself now that I prefer to at least wait until about 4 o'clock, around 4 o'clock, to close my window. Like today is a Thursday, I closed my window at 3:45, and that was just when I was done. I was satisfied. But if I would have done it any earlier, I just would have felt mentally unsatisfied closing it that early. And it has nothing to do with hunger, because I could definitely go without being hungry. But mentally, I just like to leave it open that long. So you have to kind of know yourself that way as well. And it's just a matter of experimenting and seeing what works. So I really hope that helps somebody out there who's just a little bit confused and thinks that they have to do it a certain way. You definitely don't, but these are some guidelines that I think could help give you an idea of what might help and what might make it sustainable for you. As always, I hope you're doing well, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.